I found out I was dead at a highway rest stop. I think they are wrong. I pulled into the rest area with my bladder about to explode. I had attempted to drive from Florida back to Cleveland without stopping. Even for being in the fall, it was oddly desolate, just me, an RV or two, and a minivan equipped standard with a clutch of kids. On my way back to my aging little Camry, I saw a pile of flowers against a tree. A white cross was propped up against the trunk, with a weathered photograph of me stapled to it. My brain didn't register who it was staring at initially. It was me, in front of my car before I left for Florida. I snapped a picture of it and uploaded it to social media. Comments flooded in behind it. Rip, did they ever find out what caused the accident? The memorial is lovely. I immediately set out to correct them. I was inundated with replies. That's not funny, let her rest in peace, you asshole. Did someone hack Leah's account? Angry emojis. Further attempts at explanations returned more vitriol. They accused each other of a sick practical joke. I called my mom. Did someone report me dead? Was it just a mix-up? She was not thrilled. Stop doing this, she wailed into the phone before I could speak. Just let us grieve, you sicko. Bang. She hung up the phone. I decided the only way to march forward was to do this in person. When I hopped onto 71 North, my phone chirped and buzzed on the center console. I popped open the notification and then had to pull over. One of the pictures was of my obituary. The one next to it was me. I was in that coffin. My sister had captioned it, "Rip Leah." I'm sorry about all of the shitty words and petty fights. It was unmistakably me. I could even see the collar tattoo I got while in Florida peeking out. I checked myself, it was still there. As stupid as it sounds, I checked myself. I was still here, solid, able to touch and move things. Then my phone chirped and buzzed again. This time it was a picture of my headstone, adorned with little trinkets and flowers. Fresh dirt mounded in front of it. The user had deleted their account, but the picture still sat on the newsfeed. I tried to call my sister. A text message interrupted my finger. No sender, no phone number attached to the message. It read, "Misters before sisters, dear Leah." My thumbs thundered on the small glass screen. Who the fuck are you? You don't remember appeared almost as soon as I had hit send. I'm not in the mood. Everyone thinks I'm fucking dead already. You are. I pulled off to the side of the highway and hit the call button on the side of the text message. I paced on the side of the road as traffic plowed past me, completely disregarding me. It kept ringing. Then the ringing stopped. I waited. I cursed under my breath and looked at my phone. The call was still going. I broke the silence. God damn it, say something, I bellowed into the phone, into the oncoming cars. In a moment of no cars blazing past, I heard something just barely leak from the speaker. I climbed in my car, hoping it would break the noise of the wind and passing cars. The voice mumbled and stumbled. I turned on the Bluetooth connection and played the call through my car speakers. It's okay, the voice wheezed and stuttered. We can love each other now. I was about to cry. I was so frustrated. I started to scream, ask why, anything really, but I heard the distinct sound of the phone hanging up. I screamed anyway. I smacked my steering wheel a few times before having a breakdown in the car. My phone chirped. Don't cry. Leah, the thread with no name or number lit up. I got my shit together real fast. I jerked around, scouring the road and the line of woods at the edge of the highway for my observer. Nothing. I haphazardly swung my car out to merge into the rushing traffic, mashing the pedal to the floor. My phone buzzed on the floor of the car. I pushed my car faster. It buzzed again. I merged in and out of slower drivers. Again and again. It kept buzzing and chirping. I slowed down after a few miles and grabbed my phone from the floorboard. Leah. Don't leave me here. You aren't being safe. You could die again. Come back here. Leah, this is what you wanted. The phone chirped in my hand. A new message shifted the others up one place. Then another, still a third, C, and finally, the one that punched me in the gut, you. I decided not to respond and flung my phone into the center console. I figured it could be someone who hacked my phone somehow. It periodically alerted me to new messages. I knew what they were without looking. I kept my eyes on the road and the gas to the floor. Then my car chimed. A bright orange little gas pump icon popped up on the dash. I whipped onto the next exit. The truck stop was the only thing off the exit save for fields and trees, and even it was desolate. I couldn't help but be on high alert, constantly checking all around me as I pumped gas into my car. I checked my phone. 300 messages. 50 missed calls. I decided to call the police. No service out here in the boondocks of Alabama. The pumps didn't have credit card readers, so I went in to pay after filling up. The man behind the counter looked at me with the disdain of a spider to a fly. Where ya headed, ma'am, he asked politely yet sideways. In that way the South has mastered. Back to Cleveland? I said as I handed him my card. Do you have a phone I could use? I wanted to make an important call, but I don't have service out here. I reckon you could use the office phone, he shrugged. Mr. Green generally don't want no one in there, but you look like it might be an emergency. It could be, I admitted more to myself than him. I went back to the office and found the number for the police in the old tattered phone book they kept under the old rotary-style phone. A woman answered. Good afternoon, Leah. How may we help you? This guy keeps harassing me. I think he faked my death. Somehow I spouted off immediately. The other end of the call was silent. As it dawned on me, I couldn't help but feel like they were staring at me, waiting for me to catch on. The voice rattled and became distorted. It was so good to see you at the filling station, Leah, the voice said slowly, yet cheerfully. I jammed an old metal chair up against the office door hard enough that the old stained and textured glass rattled in the frame. The two long windows were shrouded with heavy bars. I glanced out to the attendant who was talking on another phone. I thought it was a little weird that a place like that had more than one phone line. Then he winked at me. Come, keep me company, he pouted. It gets lonely working all alone. The phone hurtled to the dusty wooden floor. I armed myself with whatever I could. I fucking hated statistics in college. I wasn't going to end up one in this armpit of a place. All I found that would possibly protect me was a rusted and less than straight letter opener. I cowered in the door's blind spot and waited. Something slipped past one of the windows, but it was going too fast for me to be able to distinguish anything. Then the doorknob rattled, and a deep voice with a thick drawl called out, "Anybody in here?" The door gave a little with their pushing. It's private property, and I saw you moving around in here. You left your car right out there, so just get, and I won't have to arrest you. Then the door stopped. I heard two distinct sets of feet shuffling. One set broke into a thundering sprint, followed by the sound of something large hitting the old wooden floor. The office shook and the windows rattled. A gunshot rang out. I covered my head and scrambled under the dusty wooden desk. My heartbeat filled my ears. The stress and uncertainty overwhelmed me to the point my vision started to tunnel. Then it was dark outside. My head was pounding. I pulled the chair out and gently cracked the door. It was vacant. The lights were off. My car was still sitting there. A long streak of blood smeared the floor and still glistened in the moonlight. I ducked and dodged through the store, then barreled for my car door when I was positive I wouldn't be intercepted. Somehow the place looked even more desolate than before in my rearview mirror. I plugged my dead phone into my car charger and hit the highway again. 2:30 a.m., my radio clock read. My car filled with bright blue light as my phone kicked on. I pounded an energy drink from the passenger seat. I drove non-stop until I hit Kentucky. I decided to try to call my parents again, or anyone. I had to know what was happening. No service. They had deactivated my phone. I pushed through. The next time I stopped for gas, my car was so far past E that it may as well have been a menorah on Miracle Night. This time, though, it was a well-lit chain truck stop. I picked up a burner phone and a burger and got the phone set up in the safety of my locked car. I called my mom again. "Hello," she said from a pit of herself. "Mom, I'm still alive." She ugly cried. It's really the only thing to describe it. Defeated yet hopeful, she said, "I buried you a week and a half ago. Dental records matched." "Mom," I tried to interrupt. "No, I'm still alive. There's this guy stalking me and I think the police kill." "Leah, you have to let go," she said softly. "I know, I don't want to let you go, but is there a light or something?" Then I hit a dead zone. I must have hit the gas harder while I was talking to my mom, because red and blue lights filled my mirrors. I was digging for my documents when I glanced in my mirror and saw him approaching slowly with his gun drawn. The moment the gun registered in my brain, I slammed on the gas. I sprayed him with gravel, and the sudden movement sent him crashing to the shoulder. I hopped off the next exit before he even hit his feet again. I pulled down a dark, tree-lined road. Still no service. I got out of my car and paced, cursing under my breath. Then I noticed the trunk was slightly opened, like I'd closed it on something that was holding it open just slightly. My brain went straight to that fucker from the filling station hiding, waiting for me, like a panther in a tree. I popped the trunk, ready to jump in and mow down someone that jumped out. Nothing popped out. The whole forest around me was silent. I crept around. There was something in there. I gently lifted the lid. A police officer. Plump, uniformed, and missing his arms and legs. I slammed the trunk and sunk to the gravel road. It felt insurmountable. That man was still out there, probably watching me. The police think I killed this man, and my mom thinks I'm a ghost calling her somehow. I struggled to breathe. The trees felt like they were leaning towards me, curling around and locking me in the forest. Then my phone chirped. "He was going to take you to jail," the message read. It felt condescending, like it was an "I told you so" to a toddler. "They're going to think I killed him when they find me," I quickly punched in. Just a shrug emoji came back, then a heart. Fuck. Statistics, I mumbled to myself, getting up off the dirt road. I unceremoniously dumped him in the woods. His gun was missing, as was the rest of his service gear. I piled up leaves and twigs on what was left of his body. I wiped my hands on a spare shirt and threw it into the mix. A single match and any evidence linking me to him was gone. My car crept deeper into the woods along the road that was becoming more of a strip of plants than road. It seemed like an eternity, but the trees opened to another road on the other side. I took a hard turn onto the deserted road and back onto the highway. I drove straight through to Cleveland. My phone chirped regularly, but I ignored it. I resisted my urges to stretch, to use the bathroom. Everything looked normal when I arrived at my parents' house. I knocked on the door. No dogs barking, no yells to come in, no hurry to open the door. I knocked again, and again. That time, the door nudged open just a hair. I pushed it open a little more. My parents were sitting on their couch, facing the television. "Mom." "Dad," I called into the house before slowly entering. "It's me, I'm okay." They were silent, motionless. So was Rex, our golden retriever. I ran over to shake them. I reasoned there might have been a CO2 leak. My dad's body folded over. A long, clean cylinder had been bored through the back of his head. I gave my mom's shoulder a pull. She had the same. Rex. I checked Rex. It was smaller, but he'd gotten the same. I backed away towards the front door. My phone chirped. I felt fire boiling my tears away. A video clip that started at the sidewalk, bounced up to the porch, and ended with me looking down at my phone. I whipped around. No one was there. My phone chirped again. I ran for the kitchen. A drill with a bloody circular bit was in the sink. I jerked the Ronco rocker from the knife block hard enough to send the rest of the knives crashing to the floor. There he was, standing in the doorway. He was draped in black. I could see his blue eyes were bloodshot and stood out starkly from his sickly white, wrinkled skin. I could feel a sick smile under the bandana that covered his nose and mouth. I ran at him, full of tears and rage. He simply held a phone up, with the flash on. He went down easy, even from my small body slamming into him. I slashed and stabbed, over and over, until I couldn't feel any more. Then I ripped the bandana off his face. Exposed teeth grimaced back at me in a lipless smile. His blue eyes had rolled back into his head. I staggered off of him and dropped the knife in the sink. I woke up to first responders. They said there wasn't a man there, no evidence of the stabbing. My parents' bodies weren't there when they arrived on the scene. When the investigators pulled my records, they found there had been doctoring to make it look like I was a recently deceased girl. The worst part, they said records showed that both of my parents died 2 years prior. I need this record to be out in the public, in case I disappear next. Next story. Don't deliver to 166 Lower Creek Road. Please. If you DoorDash, do not deliver to 166 Lower Creek Road. If you get that address, please cancel immediately. Ignore the high tip. It's not worth it. I haven't been DoorDashing long. I think it's been 2 months since I started. And now I'm writing this submission from the trunk of my car. Why am I writing this instead of calling the cops? Well, because I've already called 911 and the dispatcher laughed and hung up. According to her, 166 Lower Creek Road doesn't exist and they get a prank call about that address every other night. Hell, she even said that Lower Creek Road has been closed for years. So I'm writing my story on here because you all will believe me. I was in the last 10 minutes of a 4-hour shift with DoorDash. When I saw that it was 10:50 p.m., I decided to call it a night and head home. I then attempted to end my dash, but a new order popped up. Go to McDonald's. The pay showed $50. The pay is usually 10 at the highest. I couldn't say no. I was already close to McDonald's and it didn't take long to get there. Once inside, the cashier informed me that there wasn't a DoorDash order with the order number I had. I looked at the items ordered and it was just an ice water, nothing else. $50 pay for an ice water. Whatever, I'll take it. The cashier laughed at the order and handed over a large styrofoam cup of water. She informed me they get an order like this every other night. As I walked back to my car, I felt very weird about this order. My gut told me to cancel, but I had already left the store with the item. The delivery address was only 3.5 miles out, and I reminded myself of the high payout, money that I really needed. So I pulled out onto the highway and made my way to Lower Creek Road. In no time, the GPS had me on a heavily wooded dirt road. It was very curvy and hard to navigate in the dark. My paranoia had me seeing things out of the corner of my eyes. I pressed on. After what felt like an eternity, the GPS said aloud, "Turn left onto Lower Creek Road in a quarter mile." Once at the road, there wasn't any road sign, but I made the left anyway. "Your destination will be on your right in 1 mile," the GPS said. Off the bat, I noticed none of the mailbox numbers started with a 1. They all started with a 6, and if the road was like any other, then the actual address of my destination was 666 Lower Creek Road. Now, I'm not religious or superstitious, but the idea that the address was actually 666 made me feel even more worried. All the homes on the road looked very run down and deserted. I was now only about 400 feet from my turn, and I could see an old rusty mailbox at the head of the driveway. Sure enough, the numbers on the mailbox read 666. The GPS sang out that I was at my destination. and the DoorDash app read off the delivery instructions. Leave at my feet, do not disturb. Those words chilled me. Usually the directions were a simple leave at door or hand to customer. I slowly pulled down the driveway, which was fully surrounded by thick undergrowth and large trees. The little dirt road finally gave way to an opening. There was no house in the clearing. Setting right in the middle of the opening were what seemed to be three men. They were sitting on lawn chairs in a semicircle. They were illuminated by a blue light that was being emitted from the ground by what looked like a projector. They all had their hands up in the air and were looking directly into the blue light. The scene made me so nervous I began to feel nauseous. I got out of my car and slowly walked towards them. I have never walked so slowly and quietly in my life. I didn't want them to notice me at all. Once I reached them, I could tell they were all completely naked. The man in the middle had a small box in his lap, and smoke was coming from the box, like something was smoldering inside it. There is a strong smell of burning hair around them. The only noise was the hum of the projector. I approached the man closest to the road and carefully tried to set the cup of ice water at his feet. My hands were shaking too badly, and I dropped the cup, spilling the water all over his feet. None of them had any reaction. I promptly stood up and walked back to the car as fast as I could. My heart was beating out of my chest. When I got within about 5 feet of my car, I looked back towards the men. Only one of them remained in his seat. The other two were gone. For a moment, everything felt still, and then the man's head snapped in my direction. He stood immediately and started sprinting towards me. I turned quickly to get in my car, but what I saw stopped me completely. The other two men were sitting in the driver and passenger seats, both of them staring forward. I heard the man's footsteps closing in from behind me, and before I could react, he tackled me headfirst into my car. The impact was violent, and I immediately felt blood running down my face. As I pleaded, the man dragged me back to the lawn chairs. He threw me down in the middle chair and dumped whatever was burning in the small box over my head. The embers burned my scalp. I began to scream as the man grabbed my face and forced me to stare into the light. My eyes began to get very heavy, and I couldn't keep them from closing. When they opened, I was no longer in the middle of the woods at night. It was now daylight. I was now high in the mountain and seated in front of a massive opening in the side of a mountain. Carvings were all around the outside of the opening. The carvings depicted faces with their mouths agape. The men were seated beside me. All three hummed in unison. The opening gave way to a large pit that seemed to be forever deep. A large gust of wind pushed out from within the mountain before the air was sucked back into the opening forcefully. It was like the mountain was breathing. Each exhale pushed me away. Each inhale pulled me closer and closer to the pit. My eyes widened as I realized it wasn't the mountain breathing, but that something very large down inside the mountain was the source of the air. Something very massive, something very alive. Just the thought of the unidentified being made me want to scream out in madness. My fixation on the abyss was broken by a buzzing and vibration in my pocket. My phone was ringing. This broke my trance, and I realized I was back in the woods in the middle of the night. I looked around me and realized that the three men were still in a meditative state as they looked into the blue light. I jumped from the chair and started a dash for my car. I crashed into the driver's side door and dug for my keys. Nothing. They were gone. I looked towards the men and noticed they were now walking towards me. I noticed my trunk was open and hopped inside before slamming it down. That's how I ended up in the trunk. I'm laying here with no hope. I just want you to know to never deliver to 666 Lower Creek Road. Also, there is something in that mountain. It's alive, and it wants us all.